everybody. Welcome back to the Mo.news podcast for the beginning of another week. It is Monday, August 26th. I'm Mo.news.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to, as many of you are either already sending your kids back to school or are about to.
And if your kids are not back at school yet, you, like me, don't know what day it is. You're coming,
Camp is
you're going.
over. School isn't back yet. You're just counting down the days. So
you're just like, what are we going to do to entertain the kids today? Yeah,
yes.
That's basically how it goes.
Well, if you're in a good part of the country, the weather is cooperating. So you should be able to make use of some of that time outdoors. I think you guys are getting some rain in the Midwest today, so good luck to all of you finding those indoor activities.
All right, let's get to some headlines here. Worries about a wider war in the Middle East after a massive exchange of fire between Israel and the Hezbollah terror group this weekend. To politics, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. officially ending his campaign for president and endorsing Donald Trump. What does it mean for the election?
What it doesn't mean and what it does mean, and then some speculation ahead.
The West Nile virus puts Dr. Anthony Fauci in the hospital. The state of the virus this summer, as more than 30 states have seen cases. The founder of the messaging app Telegram's been arrested. What we're learning about his alleged crimes. NASA officially makes the call to bring the Boeing space capsule to Earth without astronauts. What this means for how long the two astronauts who wrote it up will now have to stay in space.
Yeah, they're awaiting a new transportation vehicle, but they're going to also have to wait for the end of that group's mission before they get to come home. Long story short, New Year's Eve in the space station, Jill.
Once again, hope they brought extra underwear. Scientists' new plan to genetically engineer cows to put out less gas.
Yeah, this is a big thing when it comes to climate change, the amount of methane coming out of the cows and what they're trying to do about it.
And Ted Lasso may get another season after many thought that the season 3 finale was going to be it. Didn't they say it was going to be it?
They thought it was. It was only written for 3 seasons, but Jill, they can't get enough and they're negotiating some deals to do a 4th one.
You gotta give the people what they want. We need Ted Lasso. We need that kind of
Times like this,
old-fashioned, yes.
Feel good. There's not many things to feel good about these days, and Ted Lasso is one of them.
And Moshe has On This Day in History.
Your clue today for On This Day in History, it's a word that has a groove, it's got a meaning, it's a time, it's a place, it's emotion, it's the way we're feeling. You got it, Jill?
I think I do. I didn't at first, but
it's got a groove, it's got a meaning. You know that line.
Okay, we begin with a major exchange of fire in the Middle East and concerns about the potential for a wider war. Early Sunday morning, the Israeli military said roughly 100 of its fighter jets bombed more than 40 Hezbollah terror targets in southern Lebanon. Israel said thousands of rockets pointed toward Israel had been destroyed. An Israeli military spokesperson said Hezbollah had intended to fire a few hundred rockets at northern Israel and launch unmanned drones at the center of the country, including the major population center of Tel Aviv at 5 a.m. on Sunday. Hezbollah responded by reportedly firing more than 320 rockets at nearly a dozen Israeli military bases and positions. It isn't immediately clear whether any of those Hezbollah rockets hit their targets. Israel said it had largely thwarted the strikes, and an Israeli military spokesperson said that there had been very little damage. No IDF bases were damaged in the attack, and none of the Hezbollah drones impacted targets in central Israel. Hezbollah plans to launch missiles at an intelligence base near Herzliya, Israel. That's home to Mossad headquarters and several IDF intelligence units. It is one of the largest barrages since the war in Gaza began last October. Hezbollah has been launching rockets every day on Israel since the October 7th Hamas terror attack to support the Gaza-based terror groups. Israel has responded in kind for months in what has been kind of this low-grade war. The concern with the latest events of the past 48 hours is that things definitely could escalate further. Lebanon's health ministry said that at least 3 Lebanese people had been killed and 2 others hurt in Israel's attack. Israel said 1 soldier had been killed on its side and several other Israelis injured.
Yeah, so both Israel and Hezbollah here both tried to claim victory of sorts. Israel for its pre-dawn raid, preemptive strike, preempting this 5 a.m. assault on most of Israel. They again said they were able to take out thousands of rocket positions, launcher barrels across southern Lebanon, preventing dozens or potentially hundreds of Israeli deaths across the country in a surprise early morning strike. Hezbollah, for its part, said, we launched all these rockets and drones on Israel, even though Israel says they knocked them, nearly almost all of them, out of the air, and they caused little damage. So Hezbollah now says this was round one of their revenge attack. Remember, Israel last month assassinated a top Hezbollah leader, the number 2 in the terror group. And Hezbollah has been saying for a while, we're going to have revenge. We're going to have revenge. Well, they're about to take revenge. Israel got to them first. Now Hezbollah says round one is done. We might do a second round. We're going to assess what we were able to accomplish. Sort of what you saw from Iran back in April, where they claimed victory, even though Israel knocked most of the missiles, rockets, and drones out of the air. For the Israeli side here, they say they don't seek full-scale war, but they will try to prevent these major assaults. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is saying this is not the end of the story. We've talked about this before. Neither Hezbollah nor the Israelis want an all-out war. Israel is busy in Gaza, has other issues related to Iran, etc. Hezbollah, for its part, they've been launching these strikes on Israel for a while, showing sympathy for the Hamas cause, saying we're here to support you, but we also don't want to get involved in a all-out war here and have the Israelis destroy our capacity. Part of the Israeli a war in Gaza has been aimed at Hezbollah, saying if you launch anything like what Hamas launched on us, Lebanon will look like Gaza. That's been the message by the Israelis. Lebanon also, for its part, has a government, has an economy that's struggling. It keeps telling Hezbollah, which is an independent terror group / political party that operates inside Lebanon, don't drag us into a war. We do not want this right now. But Hezbollah operates independently. They report up to Iran. So it's sort of like, imagine a terror group militia that's involved in U.S. politics, but has its own weapons in Texas that just launches missiles on Mexico. And we don't have a powerful military, and we don't have a military powerful enough to take out that militia. So we have to tolerate their shenanigans and tell them, hey, can you stop sending rockets and missiles on Mexico? That's sort of the conundrum for the Lebanese here. They've been trying to tell Hezbollah, please just don't get us involved in this right now. We have other issues in the country. But Hezbollah has its own agenda, particularly the Iranian agenda, and that's sort of where we're at. So the Middle East remains on edge here, though notably by midday Sunday, the two sides were talking about the language of containment here. Hezbollah again saying they finished their first stage of the attack. We believe we've accomplished our revenge on the Israeli assassination of our commander. The Israelis talking to the U.S. Defense Secretary saying that they're looking to avoid regional escalation after preempting this strike by Hezbollah, knocking out their missiles and rockets from the air in the counter strike, in the counter strike, I should say, from Hezbollah. And that's sort of where things stand as of this morning in the Middle East.
Right. And Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, he spoke on Sunday, and he is accusing Israel of hiding its losses and casualties, which some analysts are taking to mean that Hezbollah perhaps is done in terms of its retaliation. And they're arguing that, in fact, their response was worse than Israel is making it seem.
Yeah, it's Hezbollah being, no, we totally killed a whole bunch of people and did a whole bunch of stuff, and you guys are hiding it. That's Hezbollah saying, we're not interested in doing anything more here. We're going to claim victory, even if it goes against what actually happened. So we can all just move on from this. We got our revenge. And that's where things stand. And we're not interested in escalating this further, given what unfolded over the past 24 hours.
All right, so politics here in the U.S. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced Friday that he is suspending his campaign, and then he endorsed former President Trump in the race. It is something that we talked about on this podcast, saying this was likely going to happen in the days leading up to Friday's announcement. Kennedy made the announcement ahead of a Trump rally in Arizona before appearing with the GOP nominee. Kennedy has been polling at between 3 to 5% in recent weeks. He told his supporters in swing states to vote for Trump instead, saying that while he has a lot of disagreements with Trump, he does support him on key issues like cutting aid to Ukraine and fighting social media censorship. Take a listen.
Polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats, with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. In about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me.
So you hear Kennedy there saying, listen, if you're in a very blue state or very red state, please still vote for me, because Kennedy is hoping to get to 5% in those states. Very unrealistic at this point. But he is hoping to do that because that would ensure he has a permanent slot. His party has a permanent slot on the ballot in subsequent elections. But he does say in the 10 or so battleground states, vote for Trump. The last thing I want right now is Harris to become president.
But if you're thinking, wait, a Kennedy endorsing a Republican, yes, a lot of people were thinking the same thing. The 70-year-old son of former Democratic politician Robert F. Kennedy and member of one of America's most prominent political families launched his campaign as a Democrat last year before registering as an independent candidate last October. Kennedy said he believes that the Democratic Party is corrupt for hurting his ability to compete with Biden and for not having a primary process to nominate Kamala Harris. At a rally late Friday, Trump welcomed Kennedy to his side. We should note the two have been extremely critical of one another in the past. As recently as last month, Kennedy called Trump a terrible human being who was, quote, probably a sociopath and one that engages in, quote, barely coherent, unhinged barrages of words.
Yeah, that was just a bit of what Kennedy has called Trump in recent weeks.
But how do you really feel, RFK? And then Trump called Kennedy a far-left lunatic, among other things. But by Friday, they were ready to bury the hatchet.
They were hugging and shaking hands on stage, Jill.
So if you're wondering what is going on, Trump did promise Kennedy a couple of roles in his administration.
His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. And I know that they are looking down right now, and they are very, very proud of Bobby. I'm proud of Bobby. You want to know the truth?
So, Jill, those were just a few of the things Trump had to say at their rally together. It came after a very over-the-top intro at an arena in Arizona with fireworks. It was very WWE style. Kennedy walks out to the Foo Fighters song, My Hero, as Trump introduces him. By the way, we should note the Foo Fighters are not happy about their use of their music, and they filed a cease and desist against Trump, saying, do not play our music at your rallies. So RFK is on stage. Trump is introducing him. He's getting these amazing cheers from this rally crowd of nearly 15,000 people or so. RFK Jr. has said he reached out to both Trump and Harris in recent weeks. Harris won't pick up his calls. Harris wants nothing to do with him, but Trump did. In fact, Donald Trump Jr., his son, alongside Tucker Carlson, apparently have been involved in the efforts here to get Kennedy and Trump together. Trump saw the recent polling. He sees that more of his voters were going to RFK than Harris voters, and that might be crucial, especially as some of the states could be very close this fall. A reminder, where they had the rally, Arizona, less than 20,000 votes determined the winner, Biden over Trump in 2020. Georgia was another state where it was about 12,000 votes, right? So RFK right now, even at 3%, 2%, typically I should say third-party candidates get about half of what they poll at. If you look at recent history, even if he's pulling 1% of the vote, that could be like 50,000 votes or 80,000 votes in some of these states, and that could make a difference given how close these states are. So that's notable. Keep in mind, though, not everyone who votes for RFK Jr. or was supporting RFK Jr. is going to support Trump here. We actually did a sort of informal poll on the mo.news Instagram account over the weekend, asking people, hey, if you're an RFK Jr. supporter, who are you going to go to next? And the majority of them did say they would go to Trump, but you did have a whole number of them saying, I'm still going to sit on the sidelines. I'm going to another third-party candidate. Some of whom actually said, actually, I tend to agree with Harris on more things than Trump, and I'm going to vote Harris. So it doesn't automatically mean that everyone who's supporting RFK is going to go to Trump. Now, as far as those promises, what does RFK get out of this deal? Well, apparently he's going to help to be able to lead a couple panels Trump announced at his rally on Friday. One is a panel on presidential assassinations, an independent panel that he will look into the assassination of his uncle, JFK, the assassination of his father, RFK, as well as the assassination attempt on Trump. It's unclear how much authority he'll have here, and it's notable because Trump actually was required by law to release all of the remaining classified documents related to the JFK assassination. It was actually the law by 2017 that Congress had passed back in the 90s. Well, some of them, several thousand of them, still remain classified. Trump made the call not to release everything. Now Trump says this time, I'm totally going to release them. And then there's a second panel on health, children, issues like vaccines, et cetera, that have been big issues for Kennedy. And apparently there's going to be a panel on that. Take a listen to a bit of what Trump said about this panel on health that he wants Kennedy to lead on.
I want to salute Bobby's decades of work as an advocate for the health of our families and our children. Nobody's done more. Millions and millions of Americans who want clean air, clean water, and a healthy nation have concerns about toxins in our environment and pesticides in our food. That's why today I'm repeating my pledge to establish a panel of top experts working with Bobby to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic health problems and childhood diseases.
Kennedy, of course, very controversial in his opinions, and a number of scientists have said he's actually had to backtrack on a couple of his views and allegations when it comes to vaccines through the years here. That said, Trump is saying, listen, I am open to your ideas on this, and that apparently has brought Kennedy aboard here. The irony is, on some of the stuff you just heard Trump talk about, clean water, clean air, healthy things, Democrats, independents, even some Republicans point out the irony of all that, given that Trump, of course, has been huge in terms of cutting environmental regulations during his first term, giving a lot more deference to companies that pollute. So surprising that Kennedy, such an advocate here, would go with him. But this is something Kennedy recognized. He's like, listen, I disagree with Trump on a lot of things, but I am going with him this fall. So the two here appear to have struck a very practical alliance. And so we'll see what comes of how many of his supporters climb aboard. Some of the people not climbing aboard the Trump train, his family, many of the Kennedy family members put out statements on Friday. A reminder, RFK Jr. has 10 siblings himself. Many of them put out statements saying, we're not supporting him. He's an outcast. This is a betrayal of our family values. And so there you have it. Meanwhile, Democrats said that this is a sign of weakness. This is Donald Trump at a low point, acting out of desperation, trying to bring Kennedy aboard. Though I have heard from people, Jill, who are surprised that Kamala Harris would not give him the time of day. That said, I think for many Democrats, Kennedy, a supporter of these anti-vax theories, some conspiracy theories, Kennedy believes that the CIA is behind everything bad in society, that he's sort of a third rail, and so sort of untouchable for Democrats, and that's where Harris has stood on that.
And Kennedy's wife, Cheryl Hines, who may be familiar if you watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, she put out a statement where she didn't really mention Trump at all. She just said that she was, proud of her husband and thanked everyone who supported him.
Yeah, though we should note that Hines and Kennedy did an interview on TMZ, I think earlier this year, where they said, hey, how would you feel about your husband supporting Trump at some point if this doesn't work out? And they basically alluded to the fact that, this would not be good for their marriage, that he knows. I think she said in the interview, Bobby knows better than to do that. So there's a lot of speculation that this might be a little rough behind the scenes right now. Jill, still, I will say this, Kennedy spoke to a certain group of people, very health conscious, very questioning of the social media companies, of the government, et cetera. And so there is some overlap there with Trump. So this could have, again, negligible impact, but in a close election could, help Trump here. And some of the issues that he spoke to here, he may have been an imperfect spokesman for them, given his history and some of the other things that he's up to, but are certainly issues that, we hear from folks in the mo.news community, people worried about, the leniency that the FDA gives food companies for what they put in food, et cetera. And there are some, issues there that he spoke to that I've heard from voters, they don't hear from the other candidates.
Time for the speed read from NBC News. Of all of the viruses that Dr. Anthony Fauci studied during his decades serving as the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, it was West Nile that landed him in the hospital recently. Fauci was hospitalized for 6 days with West Nile virus this month. He returned home late last week, and a full recovery is expected. Fauci is 83 years old. He was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases for nearly 4 decades before he retired in 2022. West Nile virus is a mosquito-borne illness. It can cause fever, body aches, diarrhea, and rash. That's according to the CDC. And there are no vaccines or treatments for the virus. This summer, Fauci released a memoir called On Call that recounted his long career in public health and medicine. In it, he wrote about the leading role he played in responding to the nation's AIDS epidemic in the 1990s and the 1980s, and his unlikely rise to fame and political notoriety as the face of the coronavirus response under Trump.
Yeah, so a lot of epidemics, diseases, viruses that he studied through the years, and it's West Nile virus that hit him really hard. West Nile virus comes to us via mosquitoes that spread the virus. Since West Nile was first detected in the U.S. back in 1999, so 25 years now, it's become now the most common mosquito-borne illness in the U.S. In fact, wild fact here, Jill, mosquitoes are actually the most deadly animal in the world because of the diseases that they carry. So the bugs become infected when the mosquitoes bite sick birds. Then they spread those diseases to people. As you noted, there's no vaccine or treatment, but about 80%, 85% of cases, you might not even feel. You might have had West Nile virus this summer and you didn't have any symptoms. But in about 1 in every 150 cases, it becomes very serious. As of earlier this month, there have been more than 200 human West Nile cases reported in 33 states. Again, typically, you're only learning about them if you land in the hospital with them. And of those just over 200 cases, about 150 were called neuroinvasive, meaning the people developed such a severe form of disease from West Nile virus that it led to inflammation in the brain and in areas surrounding the brain and spinal cord. Those are the cases that typically require hospitalization here. So you might have heard it in various communities. I know those of you in San Antonio have had an uptick in cases. Vegas also had some West Nile mosquitoes that led to a bunch of hospitalizations earlier this summer. They tend to travel in neighborhoods. So just a heads up, if you live in the Wesley Heights neighborhood of DC, that's Fauci's neighborhood, we heard from a couple people, Jill, in the mo.news community who said that they had relatives who had serious West Nile cases who lived in that area.
Right. And it's particularly older people who are most impacted or really young or immunocompromised. So those are the populations that are most at risk. So definitely try to limit if you are in that group and you live in an area where West Nile is present, definitely try to limit your time outdoors at around dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are usually out and about.
Yeah, and cover up if you can, and search your backyard area to make sure you don't have water sitting out.
From the French TV channel BFM TV, the founder and CEO of the messaging service Telegram was detained at a Paris airport on an arrest warrant, alleging that his platform has been used for money laundering, drug trafficking, and other offenses. This is according to French media. Pavel Durov is a dual citizen of France and Russia. He was taken into custody at a Paris airport on Saturday evening after landing in France from Azerbaijan. French media reported that the warrant for Durov was issued by France at the request of the special unit of the country's interior ministry in charge of investigating crimes against minors. Those include online sexual exploitation, like possession and distribution of child sex abuse content and grooming for sexual purposes. Telegram was founded by Durov and his brother in the wake of the Russian government's crackdown after mass pro-democracy protests rocked Moscow at the end of 2011 and 2012. The demonstrations prompted Russian authorities to clamp down on the digital space, adopting regulations that forced internet providers to block websites and cell phone operators to store call records and messages that could be shared with security services.
Yeah, so basically Durov here starts Telegram as a pro-privacy channel that allows allows for encrypted conversations here as a convenient way for Russians to communicate and share news. It means increasingly that he has not been able to return to Russia in recent years, but this app has now been picked up globally. It's used by nearly 1 billion people around the world. But due to its encrypted nature, it also means criminal gangs and terror groups and other nefarious actors are using Telegram. So a bunch of Western governments, including the US, including France, have been criticizing Telegram for a lack of content moderation on the service. They say it basically opens itself up to the use by money launderers, drug traffickers, as well as people who are sharing sexual exploitative photos and videos of children. Telegram is less secure, more lax in terms of policy, detection of illegal content. It's very unresponsive to Western governments. And so Telegram says, no, we totally combat misuse of our platform. Western governments beg to differ. Notably, we posted this clip over on the premium feed over the weekend. Durov was over on Tucker Carlson's YouTube show recently, and he says that every time he lands in the U.S., the FBI tries to get a meeting with him. They've tracked him down. They're trying to have a better relationship because they're trying to get better access to Telegram to track down various criminal threats around the world. And he said to Carlson, I have no interest in cooperating with any law enforcement.
From Bloomberg News, what was supposed to be an 8-day trip will now officially last at least 8 months for 2 NASA astronauts. NASA announced this weekend that the 2 astronauts currently stuck on the International Space Station will return next February on a SpaceX crewed Dragon flight. Space agency officials say there was too much uncertainty for the astronauts to return on the craft that brought them to the space station. We're talking about Boeing's Starliner. It had problems after the capsule sprang small leaks and some of its thrusters failed. The Boeing craft will now return to Earth without people because of uncertainty about its safety after that first trip to the ISS with those 2 astronauts had issues. So that means Sunita or Sunny Williams and Barry Butch Wilmore, who were supposed to be home in June, are now set to return on a SpaceX vehicle in 2025.
Yeah, they took that Boeing. They thought they could go home in the Boeing. That Boeing is not going, or at least it's not going home with them. It'll return to Earth in the next couple of weeks here, humanless. So they're going to have to hang out. And SpaceX, that's the company built by Elon Musk, they have a Dragon going up, and they actually have 4 seats on that, but they're going to keep 2 seats empty. So they're going to send 2 astronauts up next month. But those astronauts have a 6-month mission, which means Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore have to wait through that 6-month mission to be able to come home on the Elon Musk SpaceX vehicle. Safety, a big concern here. The Boeing Starliner had some issues coming up. It had a helium leak that delayed things. But then the docking on the ISS was what really worried operators. They had malfunctions in 5 of their 28 thrusters. And so they said, listen, safety first. We're going to take the Boeing thing back home and check it out. You guys are going to stay up there. You can keep busy up there. There's oxygen, there's food, there's other astronauts, part of the space station. Keep busy with them, work on some experiments. But for Wilmore and Williams, I'm really waiting for word from them, like an honest take from them. Like they were going to go there for a week. Now they're there till next spring. I don't know what else they had in their life. Family weddings, other things that they won't be back for or they'll be zooming in for. But that's where we're at. So Wilmore and Williams, they're back in March. And we'll see how this Boeing thing goes down back to Earth. Let's hope that it operated. But if there are any issues on its return to Earth, that's one of the reasons why NASA's like, you guys are not going to take this back. And this is a big issue for Boeing, by the way, because Boeing was supposed to be competitive here with SpaceX. NASA was going to use them. They're going to have Boeing and SpaceX, and Boeing not so much right now.
I just keep thinking of the line from Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Anyway, at least they are safe and hopefully in good spirits. And hopefully we'll be coming home.
Hey, listen, if you're really into space and you're an astronaut, like, isn't that kind of awesome to spend that much time up there? But, I don't know. Maybe they're like super excited that, they were going to be sad that they only could spend 8 days up there. But 8 months is like awesome.
The eternal optimist, Mosh. I love it.
I don't know. If I was an astronaut, maybe that's like the dream.
Probably. And again, NASA had said that one of their big mistakes was saying that this was an 8-day mission. They never should have promised that it was going to be 8 days.
Yeah, this was totally the plan all along.
We're getting them up. We don't know how we're getting them home. We're going to figure it out. All right, from the Washington Post, a multi-year $30 million experiment is being conducted by scientists at the University of California at Davis to change the inner workings of the cow stomach. Cows, one of the most consumed creatures on the planet, produce enormous amounts of methane. That is a powerful greenhouse gas that's responsible for 30% of global warming. So any cut in that is really important in terms of slowing down climate change. So using tools that snip and transfer DNA, researchers plan to genetically engineer microbes in the cow stomach to eliminate those emissions. If they succeed, they could wipe out the world's largest human-made source of methane and help change the trajectory of planetary warming. There are approximately 1.5 billion cows on the planet.
So there's about one cow for every 5 people, Jill, and that's a lot of gas that they're emitting.
This is what we're talking about, right? Like cow farts.
We're talking about cow farts. Like bottom line, we're talking about methane emissions. This is what we're talking about. Cows fart a lot. They fart so much that that is actually making the earth warmer. And because we love our steak on this planet, scientists are like, let's figure out a way to make them fart less. And that's what's happening.
Can they do it for humans?
But the Washington Post writes stuff very properly. Here at mo.news, we're just like, listen, cows fart a lot. They're trying to cut down on cow farts. That's the deal.
I don't know if you heard my question. Can they do this for humans?
Listen, I think they're working on the cow farts first.
Okay, so their digestive systems are nothing short of miraculous. They can survive on grass, corn, and alfalfa, but also the battered byproducts of human crops like almond hulls, corn husks, and even sawdust. It is a rich microbiome in the largest chamber of their stomach, known as the rumen, that dismantles these foodstuffs and then transforms them into usable energy.
Yeah, but listen, Jill, the rumen has a dark side. It hosts single-cell organisms called archaea inside it that break down hydrogen, carbon dioxide, producing methane. Unable to process the gas, cows burp it up. It also goes out the other end, too. So the average cow produces 220 pounds of methane per year, which is around half the emissions of the average car. That's how much is coming out of each cow. So cows alone, if you just take out just cows and the methane they produce, that's 4% of global warming just from the cows. And of course, methane itself accounts for about a third of overall warming. So anything you can cut from the cows does help us long term here. So there's been a variety of strategies here. There are the people out there saying go vegan, go vegetarian, right? Then there's the alternate meat people, right? Then you have environmentalists who are like, listen, if you're going to eat meat, can you eat more chicken and fish? But given population growth, beef growth has been huge. And so they've been trying various strategies, including adding seaweed, oregano, and garlic to cow diets that cut down on their emissions, sometimes by up to 80%. The problem is that 90% of cattle are not fed by humans. They're out there in pastures, right? Surviving on grass, they're foraging, which means you can't get them to eat seaweed and garlic because, that's just the cows that we have control of, that humans are feeding every day. The majority of the cows around the world are just doing their own thing, emitting their gases, making the planet warmer. And if you like your steak, that's the issue. So right now, they've, working on this project over at UC Davis. They have a team of gene editors. They envision basically a probiotic pill that can be given to cows at birth and transform their microbiome. Using gene editing tools, they've already bred cattle without horns, special cattle with slicker coats that stay cool amid rising temperatures. That's also an issue out there. You often hear about a whole bunch of cattle who are dying out there during these major heat waves. So they've already started to alter the genome of cattle. Now they're working on the microbiome to make them emit less, burp less, fart less, and help with the climate change, Jill. We'll see how they do.
Okay, the things that we learn here on the Mo News podcast. Listen,
I thought, honestly, that was the most interesting story I read this weekend, and I thought that people should know about it. So you're welcome, America.
And finally, from The Wrap, a 4th season of Ted Lasso is looking more likely than ever. Warner Brothers Television has picked up the options for 3 of the show's stars covered by equity contracts. Hannah Weddingham, Jeremy Swift, and Brett Goldstein all set for a return. While the lead British stars are now on board, the studio is now expected to work with stars covered by SAG-AFTRA contracts who have expired options. That list includes Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt, who plays Coach Beard. It is currently unclear which of the other cast members will be asked to join the show's 4th season. Once the cast is committed, the show's budget and shooting schedule will need to be set before Warner Brothers officially greenlights production, but it could begin as soon as early next year.
So this was a surprise to a number of you, given that final episode of Ted Lasso Season 3 was believed to be the show's last. I won't give away the ending, but effectively the plot line makes you believe that, like, okay, this is over. And members of the creative team had envisioned the show as a 3-season arc. Brendan Hunt, who you mentioned, said our game plan was always 3 seasons. Jason Sudeikis was committed to 3 seasons, but none of us were prepared to the degree to which people love this show. So Apple TV didn't actually promote season 3 as the show's last. They've been very cagey. They said it's up to multiple factors here, and so we might see another season here. It's looking very likely.
I am thrilled, Moshe. As we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Ted Lasso and his humor and his overall good-natured approach to life, I think we could all use a little bit of that.
All right, now time for On This Day in History. We begin on this day in 1883, which, by the way, is a very good book written about this subject. The volcano Krakatoa in Indonesia began its peak eruption on this day in 1883, killing 36,000 people. It's believed to be one of the deadliest volcanoes in human history. There was a resulting tsunami from it. It blew off most of the island. The caldera is left. It was so powerful, Jill, that it actually made global temperatures cooler. It darkened the sky worldwide for years afterwards. It also produced these spectacular sunsets. So there's a lot of artwork from the 1880s related to these beautiful sunsets, many of whom didn't realize that this was all due to this volcano that exploded on the other side of the world. It also led to record rainfall in California. Really a remarkable impact from the explosion of Krakatoa. All right, on this day in 1920, the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote, officially becomes part of the Constitution. So women officially getting the right to vote 104 years ago today. On this day in 1939, first live sports game on TV. It was the first televised Major League Baseball game. It was part of the World's Fair in New York on this day in 1939. It was a Brooklyn Dodgers versus Cincinnati Reds game. Regular programming still didn't really exist at that point on TV. In fact, when this aired, there were only 400 TVs in the entire city of New York at the time. By the 1950s, TV sets started to become cheaper and more common in U.S. households. Speaking of TV, on this day in 2001, Mr. Rogers said goodbye after 33 years on TV. And we end here with a bit of musical history. On this day in 1977, the Commodores released Brick House 47 years ago today. And on this day in 1978, Jill, your clue at the top, Grease was the word we were talking about.
I knew it.
Frankie Valli's Grease, the song you just heard a bit of, reached number 1 on the Billboard charts on this day in 1978. It actually, Jill, that Grease album had 4 top 10 hits. Just before this one hit number 1, You're the One That I Want also went to number 1. Hopelessly Devoted to You, Olivia Newton-John. Also, that actually got up to number 3 on the charts. And then Summer Nights,
Summer Lovin'. Oh, I thought it was called Summer Lovin'.
Well, because the song starts, Summer Lovin' had me a blast. Summer Lovin' had me happened so fast. But the song officially, Summer Nights. I met a girl who was crazy for me. Yada, yada, yada. I'm going to go listen to the Grease album now. But on this day in history, Grease crushing the music charts this summer in 1978.
And thank you for letting us crush the podcast charts. Thanks for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
By the way, we should give original credit. There was the Grease, the Broadway musical, the Broadway show, before it became the hit film. So it was this era where, like, you had, multiple Broadway shows becoming movie hits. Fun fact, Jill, the Fonz Henry Winkler, was offered the Danny Zuko role first before they would give it to John Travolta.
I could see him in that role.
Yeah.
If he sings, but can he sing and dance? I don't know.
Joe, now I can't imagine Danny Zuko as anyone other than John Travolta, of course. So, all these things happen for a reason. But anyway, thank you guys for your support here for the Mo News podcast as we begin another week, this final week of August. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
August slipped away like a memory.
Oh, now we're going Taylor Swift. Okay.
Bye, everybody.